Advance and be recognized, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Sitrep podcast, your forward operations space for all things military and historical wargaming. I am your host, Ariskini Jim, and today we have a hobby build video where we're going to put together the M3A1 Half-Track in 28mm by Warlord Games. Of course, this is primarily built for the bolt action system, but naturally you can use it for whatever tabletop system you prefer. So here we are looking at the box. Comes in a great box, obviously. Looks like they've got this in some free French markings, interestingly. But for now, we're going to go ahead and open this up on camera, make this into a little bit of an unboxing video as well for you guys. And we're going to take a look at what we get in the box. Whoa! Okay, I'm used to Warlord kits being like a piece of resin with some metal bits. This is a full-on plastic model kit. So, wow. Alright, yeah, we get two full sprues with lots of parts. Yeah, a whole lot of parts. Alright, this is going to take a little bit to put together. This is why the M3A1 Half-Track build, by the way, wound up in its own video, as opposed to just being included in last week's hobby build. Thanks very much, Alexandra, for putting together our kit for us. Comes with a stat card for use in the game. And thank goodness that the kit comes with some instructions, because, yeah, there are a fair number of parts to this Warlord kit. But lots of great detail. Let's go ahead and get started building this thing. Okay, here we go with the first part of the instructions. Looks like we're going to be starting with the troop bay. So we have the base of the troop bay, and then the side assemblies that are attached later. I have cut all the initial parts out of the sprue and cleaned them as best I can with my hobby knife. And now we're going to start by building these little side assemblies. So I like to use this gel type super glue. A lot of people in the hobby like to use a thinner glue that's easier to control. I like this gel type stuff because it comes out of the bottle sort of already partially activated. I also apologize for not having this more centered on screen, but I was shooting around my camera as I was trying to build this kit. So that's how the side assemblies go together. We're going to do the other one and then proceed. Alright, so here it all is put together. We have those two side assemblies constructed and attached to the bed of the troop bay. I've also put the driver together. I had to attach his two arms and the steering wheel into his hands, of course, but I haven't actually put him in his seat yet because I'm not 100% sure how the rest of this cab is going to fit together. But for now, yeah, we've got the troop bay put together, the sides are attached, and this is the basic bed of the vehicle. Alright, step 2 is where we start the suspension. We've got the half-tracks themselves and then the front wheels. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and get started with the front wheels. There is part of the front suspension piece, and you can see where the studs fit into these small holes that they have drilled into the underside of the front carriage of the vehicle. Of course, we have the wheels that we have cleaned off and the half-tracks themselves. So let's go ahead and do the half-tracks now, because they're kind of the easier part. Alright, so one nice feature I like about this kit is how the two contact points, or the two studs, the two pegs I should say, where the half-tracks are attached are different sizes, they're different widths. This is done on purpose to make sure that you don't put the half-tracks on back to front, because there is a proper way to put these on there. You want to have the drive sprocket in front. So that's the one with the larger peg. So you put the larger peg in the larger hole. That's what she said. Long story short, take your first shot. And it snaps in there super quick and super easy. Alright, let's go ahead and put together the other side of this half-track assembly. Once again, the design of the kit makes it basically impossible for you to screw this up. Always a good thing. And what we're looking to do here is make sure that the drive sprocket is in the front of the vehicle. That, of course, is the wheel with the teeth around the perimeter, as opposed to the idler, which is in the back. This is the opposite of most armored vehicles, because most tanks tend to have the engine in the back of the vehicle, but as a half-track, it's laid out more like a conventional truck with the engine in the front. So speaking of the front, let's go ahead and get started with the front suspension and the wheels that are obviously going to attach to the axles right there where I'm pointing. Alright, that is going to complete all of the suspension assemblies, not only the half-track assemblies and the back of the vehicle, but the wheels and front suspension up there beneath the engine. Notice that I am trying to put any of the excess flash on the tires that I couldn't clean off underneath the wheels so they don't show, and we're also making sure that the vehicle is properly balanced and that it sits nice and flush on the table. Okay, next thing we're going to try and do is attach the Troop A assembly to the chassis of the vehicle. Along with, of course, there's going to be a back to the Troop A dashboard, and of course, let's not forget our friend Mr. Driver. So there's a fair amount going on here. Let's definitely consult the instructions, make sure we do this right. Looks like we're going to start with the dashboard. So how you make sure that the dashboard goes in the right place, there's a number of guide points that help you out here. Number one, there's a notch there you see at the base of the dashboard, along with those two guiding tabs there on the floor of the chassis. Okay, and again, we're just dry fitting now, but this is also how you mount the Troop A to the chassis of the vehicle, and here is where the back of the Troop A goes on there. We're looking for those 45-degree angles there that you can see at the back. Of course, I drop everything because, long story short, take your second shot. Oriskany is a hobby klutz. But on a serious note, one thing you do want to keep an eye on is the placement of the driver, because not only does he have to sit in his seat correctly, but the steering column has to meet the dashboard. Okay, so against all odds, I think I got this mostly put together more or less on the first try, although there were a few hang-ups here. Number one, those 45-degree angles didn't quite line up because I think I put the sides of my half-track in too tight, but with a little bit of brute force, I got them to line up. I also think I put those sides too far back, so I have that little bit of a gap you can see underneath the back of the Troop A, but that's okay. I had to change the arms on the driver so that the steering wheel and, more importantly, the steering column ended up in the right place on the dashboard. But yeah, after a fair amount of adjustment, I think I got everything put together. You'll see these little side pieces here that go on the external sides of the Troop A. So those are now put into place, and more or less, this is almost starting to look like a half-track. Alright, so moving on to the next part of the instructions, it looks like we're going to be putting together the rest of the cab, along with the sides, the hood, and the little windshield frame there, along with one of two choices when it comes to which front fender and which winch assembly I want to put onto my M3 half-track. Okay, the cab, my friends, did present some challenges, I'm not gonna lie. So, part of them is my fault. When I put those side pieces onto the Troop A at the very beginning of the process, I put them back a couple millimeters too far to the back, and what that causes now is that the cab doesn't quite line up with the front of those side pieces. That part is my fault. Some good news is that these winch assemblies at the front of the vehicle fit in there very easily. They're very clearly marked with little wells and, of course, the attachment points on the back of the winch. So those fit in there just fine. Here's the not so hot part, the driver. Okay, when you put the driver in the center of his seat, he will not fit, and until you break his left arm, you will not be able to get that left-hand side of the cab on there. So I had to take the cab back apart again, cut him off of his seat, shift him over to the right. So keep an eye on that if you're building this kit. Either put the driver a little bit to the right or put the driver in after you build the cab. Either way, you got to be careful of that. But other than that, this kit is actually starting to look a little bit like a half-track. Alright, so I did take a little bit of a pause here and got some fill putty to fill in some of these gaps. Again, this was not a fault of the kit. This was my mistake when I put those first two side pieces onto the Troop A. I put them too far back, and that means that literally nothing else is lining up. But again, that was my fault. But a little bit of fill putty, that takes care of it. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get to some of the fun part and put some of these machine guns onto the side of our half-track. So the machine guns fit on there pretty well. You'll notice these little locking braces that they have there at the base of the 30 caliber machine guns. They marry up very well with these attachment points here on the side of the half-track. And yeah, there's the first one already on there. It was super easy. It barely needed any kind of a glue at all, and that was nice. So I'm going to put 30 calibers on the side and the back, and then a 50 caliber fits on a bit of a pencil mount based on this circular frame, this almost quasi-cupola assembly that we're going to put on there in just a little bit. And the reason I'm putting all these machine guns on there, you probably realistically shouldn't put all 4 machine guns on there, but I'm going to go ahead and do it because rule of cool, number 1. And long story short, take your third shot. I am trying to balance my American force against some German Africa troops I have, and they're going to need all the machine guns they can get. So here's that 50 caliber firing cupola that I mentioned earlier. It's now in place. The way I would probably put this together is to pre-attach that support pole to the mounting ring in advance. Alright, so now we're going to build the 50 caliber itself, and of course it has to come in 3 pieces. You have to attach the ammunition box and then the butterfly triggers as separate parts to the assembly. The good news is, once that's all done, it fits into the front of your mounting ring very, very easily. You could almost probably leave it in there without glue if you wanted the gun to be posable, but that's a good way to lose your machine gun. I probably wouldn't do that. And once again, if you're trying to be strictly historical, I probably wouldn't put all 4 machine guns on there the way I did. Number 1, I just like lots of machine guns, and number 2, my American troops are gonna need them. Okay, so now we are looking at some of the final pieces. This is mostly stowage is what's left. We got a couple of jerry cans that are on there. We also have, if I can find them on the other sprue, we have some pieces of rolled up tents and bedding that fit over the front fenders, a couple of spare helmets, along with some additional American packs. These are just things that get attached to the side of the vehicle. Alright, so I've cut everything else off of the sprue and cleaned it up, and we're ready to go. Again, a couple of spare helmets for the crew. We've got a couple of spare packs, like I mentioned before. And we're also looking at this small storage box that fits on top of the passenger fender just underneath the door. It covers up that gap right there. And we're also looking at 2 jerry cans that fit up on top of the fenders, probably one for water for the radiator and one for fuel. And again, those little rolled up pieces of fabric. And of course, the headlights have to be 2 pieces each. So that's going to be a little bit of a little annoying to put together. But once you do that, you just go ahead and put them in those 2 eyes here on the front of the fenders, and that is going to be that. So we're coming up on the home stretch, people. Let's go ahead and finish up this model. Okay, that is going to complete the M3A1 Half-Track model, along with some other support units that I've been building in a recent sort of, miniature project to basically bulk up an existing force of American infantry that I have to the point where they can conceivably take on a similar force of German Africa troops that I have. Those German Africa troops, I sort of won all that together in a big bundle, and it came with way too many support teams for my Americans to handle. So, yeah, I had to buy a bunch of support stuff for my Americans to sort of even the playing table a little bit. So, as you probably saw in last week's video, there's a Jeep there with a 50 cal. It's now got some black primer on there. The black primer isn't quite finished drying yet, so it's a little shiny still. A 30 caliber machine gun team and an 81mm mortar team. But again, I did want to get the primer on that half-track and at least show that on camera a little bit to cover up those egregious patches of sort of fill gap that I had to, fill putty that I had to squeeze in there to correct a lot of the mistakes that I made earlier in the video. Again, those gaps were my fault. The part that wasn't so much my fault, I don't know if this is a problem with the design of the kit, is how the driver is fitted in there, especially as it concerns the left-hand side of the cabin. But I was able to fix that with a little bit of finagling. I was also able to cover up my gaps. Again, that part was my fault. And yeah, that is pretty much going to complete, again, not only the M3 Half-Track, but also the Jeep 30 caliber machine gun team and the mortar team, and hopefully my Americans can now take on my Germans at some degree of parity. Alright, so fast forwarding in time a little bit, here is what my M3 Half-Track looks like, completely painted and ready to go, complete with decals that also come with the kit. The kit does come with great decals, and some great options for the decals. Different units, American forces, even some free French markings if you're so inclined. So yeah, again, the kit was great to put together. I especially like the way the half-tracks and the wheels fit all together. The back of the troop bay is a little tricky because of those 45-degree angles that you have to look out for. And again, watch out when it comes to the driver. That driver, I don't think that was my fault. I don't think that actually fits into the kit correctly. But that's a small thing. And other than that, the kit went together great. So that's pretty much where we're going to leave it for today, folks. Thanks very much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed this content. Please remember to hit that notification bell. Also, please consider joining the Sitrep Podcast Discord. There is an auto-accept invitation link to our Discord in the description of this video. Join our community, see what everybody's up to, and best of all, show us what's happening on your hobby table. But for now, this is Risky Jim with the Sitrep Podcast. We are rounds complete for another episode, and as always, Tango Mike for watching.